I work at the Lone Star Diner, a tiny place tucked away off the road between Carson City and Reno. The diner's name was changed for reasons I'll explain later. You might wonder why I work here. Well, my life didn't go as planned. Usually, if someone is working at a lonely diner after college, it means things aren't going well. But why this diner? Why Lone Star? Lone Star is special because it pays $50 an hour. Most other diners around here paid just a bit more than minimum wage. The high pay is because of one strange reason. On my first day, everything was okay. I had worked in customer service before, so I thought I could handle the odd rules of the diner. The rules were strange and not written down. Some areas had to be spotless all the time. The boss didn't care about serving customers too fast or too slow. Here, customers didn't like it when you were too quick. They wanted to sit and think, to be alone. The diner's interior was old-fashioned, with checkered floors and booths that creaked when you sat down. The walls were lined with vintage posters of classic movies and faded photographs of happy families. The smell of frying bacon and fresh coffee always filled the air, making the place feel warm and inviting despite its isolation. The cooks had to make classic dishes that were just good enough. Nothing amazing, just perfect for what the customers wanted. As weeks passed, I got used to these weird rules. Most customers just wanted coffee and brunch, served at a steady pace. They would sit quietly, staring out the window at the dark, starry night, or staring blankly at their plates. It was as if they carried their own silent burdens, choosing to eat alone in the quiet of the Lone Star Diner. One chilly autumn evening, the wind howled outside, rattling the windows and making the lights flicker. The diner was almost empty, with only a few regulars scattered around. The sound of rain tapping against the roof added to the eerie atmosphere. The neon sign outside buzzed softly, casting a dim glow through the windows. One day, I decided to ask my boss why we got paid so well. I was curious but didn't want to cause trouble. During a busy shift, with the diner filled with the usual quiet patrons, I mustered up the courage. "Why $50 an hour?" I asked her, trying to keep my voice steady. She didn't look up from her register, her fingers methodically counting out bills. "You have to follow the rules perfectly," she said in a cold, stern voice. "If you can't follow instructions without asking too many questions, you should leave." She handed me a week's pay and told me to quit. I felt a chill run down my spine. Why was she so harsh? I wanted to ask more, to understand, but she ignored me and left the room, her footsteps echoing down the empty hallway. The diner's usual silence felt even heavier after she left. I kept working because the pay was good and the other workers were nice. The diner was my refuge, a place where I could hide the failures of my life and try to start anew. The other employees were friendly, sharing stories during breaks and helping each other out during busy times. It was a strange family of sorts, bonded by the strange rules of the Lone Star Diner. One Saturday night, under a sky filled with twinkling stars, I noticed a man sitting alone in the far corner of the diner. He wore a brown corduroy shirt and had short hair, looking calm and patient. His presence was unsettling because I couldn't remember seeing him enter. He stared blankly ahead, his eyes empty and distant, as if he was lost in his own thoughts. As I walked towards him to maybe offer some service, my boss grabbed my arm tightly. Her grip was strong enough to make me drop my notepad. "Don't go near him," she warned in a harsh whisper. "He's just a customer. Don't talk to him or take his order." Her eyes were filled with fear and anger, making me even more confused and scared. I felt a knot form in my stomach. Why was she so protective of this man? He didn't seem like he wanted company. After my shift ended, I felt uneasy about the rules and the strange man. I liked my job, but something didn't feel right. The diner's quiet became even more oppressive, and the stars outside seemed to watch me with their cold, distant light. One day, my boss got very sick and had to go home early. The other workers knew what to do when the man came, but I was curious. I decided to take a chance and ask him directly. "Hello, sir. What brings you here?" I shouted across the diner, my voice echoing in the quiet room. He turned his head slowly and touched his ear, looking confused. "What brings you here?" I called out again, louder this time, my heart pounding. To my surprise, he answered, "I'm not sure what you're saying. Can you ask me again?" His voice was calm but distant, like an echo from another world. "No, I'm good," he replied, "but it feels like no one has taken my order for a long time." I stopped talking and looked away, feeling a wave of fear wash over me. He always left without making a sound, disappearing into the shadows of the diner. The next week, my boss quit. She said she always knew she would leave after the 10th disappearance, but I didn't know what that meant. I felt alone and wished Malcolm, one of the new workers, would come back. The agents didn't give me any answers. They just said, "He's gone now." I felt a deep sadness and knew I had to be more careful. After my boss left, I noticed more government agents visiting the diner. They were always serious, wearing dark suits and looking around suspiciously. One day, an agent came in with a stack of notes and papers. He looked very serious and asked my boss how long the man had been here. She said 6 months. The agent told us that the man was part of a government operation. He walked around, talking to strangers, asking weird questions. Sometimes, strange things happened because of him. I didn't attend any more meetings after that. I felt scared and started to dread seeing the man. The agents and troopers around the diner reminded me that something bad was happening here. One new worker, Malcolm, was very eager and hardworking. He always wanted to help and never asked questions. We tried to help him understand the strange rules, but he was too curious. One stormy night, with lightning flashing outside and rain pouring down, Malcolm saw the man and didn't listen to our warnings. He picked up a garbage bag and left to take the trash out, ignoring the signs to stay away. The man stayed seated, looking more mysterious than ever. That day, more agents came to the diner. The man told them to join him at his table if they had questions. The agents laughed but didn't join him. Suddenly, the door opened, and the man acted tired and sad. He said, 30 visits, terrible service every time." His voice was soft and pathetic, sending shivers down my spine. As Malcolm walked by, he took out a notepad and approached the man. Then, both Malcolm and the man disappeared into thin air. An announcement blared over a loudspeaker. "Alert level black. Wandering target has compromised a civilian." That was the last time I saw them. After that, my boss quit. She said she knew she would leave after the 10th disappearance. I felt alone and wished Malcolm would come back. The agents didn't give me any answers. They just said, "He's gone now." I felt a deep sadness and knew I had to be more careful. One night, at the end of my shift, the man walked through the front door. The rain had stopped and the sky was clear, but his presence filled the diner with an eerie silence. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, I have my own rules." I froze, feeling like I was going to die. His eyes were empty, and his smile was unsettling. "I know you've been curious about me. I've admired it from the moment you first spoke up to address me," he continued, his voice calm but chilling. Cautious curiosity is a great thing to see in someone, especially in such a reckless species. Please, please, just go. I'd like to answer a question about why I'm visiting. I'm sure you'd like to know why I'm here, right? He pleaded, his voice trembling slightly. I'm not curious anymore, I swear. I'm not, I replied, my voice shaking. He laughed softly. The answer is really painfully simple. This little game, this little charade I'm playing, it is just so unbelievably fun. His eyes glinted in the dim light. Please don't kill me. Please, he begged, his voice breaking. You truly have a wonderful planet. I will return again soon, promise. Give me a month, maybe 2 this time. He gave a sincere, kind smile, but his eyes were cold and empty. I'll come back with a new game. And then he was gone. I felt a rush of fear and confusion. Next to me on the counter was a cake box that wasn't there before. Maybe it was there the whole time he was speaking to me, or maybe it appeared right after he left. I opened the box to find Malcolm's severed head, lying on a bed of messy flowers. His face was blank, and his eyes stared lifelessly ahead. The flowers were disorganized, almost like someone tried to make a beautiful arrangement, but failed miserably. On top of the horrific display was a note written in shaky, childlike handwriting. I brought him back just like you wished. I screamed, but no sound came out. My heart pounded in my chest as tears streamed down my face. The realization hit me hard. The worst part of working at this lonely diner was that there was nowhere else to run. Our planet was covered with stars and open skies, but we were stuck here, trapped in this nightmare. Every night, I look up at the empty sky, hoping nothing comes. But deep down, I know the horror of the Lone Star Diner is always waiting, ready to claim the next curious soul who dares to ask too many questions. The diner's lights flicker ominously, casting long, dark shadows that seem to move on their own. The walls sometimes whisper secrets, and the old jukebox plays eerie melodies that send chills down my spine. The other workers have either left or disappeared, leaving me alone with the memories and the fear. I hear footsteps in the empty halls, see glimpses of shadows moving just out of sight, and feel eyes watching me from the darkness. The man in the corner still sits there sometimes, his presence a constant reminder of the diner's dark secrets. One particularly stormy night, the power went out, plunging the diner into complete darkness. The only light came from the flashing lightning outside, casting terrifying shadows across the room. I heard the door creak open and saw the man standing there, his eyes glowing in the dim light. He approached me slowly, each step echoing ominously. "Why are you here?" I whispered, my voice trembling. He smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. "To play the game," he replied, "to see who dares to seek the truth." I backed away, tripping over a chair and falling to the floor. My heart raced as the room seemed to close in around me. The diner's walls twisted and turned, the posters warping into grotesque shapes. The once comforting smells turned foul, and the warm lights flickered with sinister intent. Suddenly, I heard voices whispering my name, coming from all directions. The agents appeared out of nowhere, their eyes empty and their faces blank. They moved towards me, their movements stiff and robotic. I tried to get up, but my legs wouldn't move. Panic set in as I realized I was trapped, unable to escape the horrors of the Lone Star Diner. The man reached out his hand, and I felt a cold chill wash over me. "Join us," he whispered. "Be part of the game." I closed my eyes, hoping it was all a nightmare, but the fear was too real. When I opened my eyes again, everything was back to normal. The diner was quiet, the storm had passed, and the man was gone. But the fear lingered, a constant shadow in my mind. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. I continued to work at the Lone Star Diner, haunted by the memories and the fear of what might come next. The nights were the worst, filled with eerie sounds and unsettling visions. Sometimes I thought I saw Malcolm's ghostly figure, wandering the halls, searching for answers that would never come. One night, as I was cleaning up, the door creaked open, and the man walked in again. His presence filled the room with an oppressive darkness. He looked at me with his empty eyes and said, "Are you ready to play?" I backed away, my heart pounding in my chest. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He stepped closer, the temperature dropping suddenly. "I want you to join us," he replied, "to keep the game alive." I turned and ran, but the diner seemed to stretch endlessly, the doors and windows closing in on me. I felt like I was running in circles, never able to escape the nightmare. Finally, I stumbled back into the kitchen, gasping for breath. The lights flickered on, and everything seemed normal again. But the fear remained, a constant reminder that the Lone Star Diner was more than just a place to work. It was a trap, a place where curiosity led to darkness and no one could ever leave. Every night, I hear the whispers and see the shadows moving just out of sight. The man in the corner still sits there, waiting for the next curious soul to ask too many questions. I know I can't escape, that I'm doomed to stay here forever, haunted by the horrors of the Lone Star Diner. The stars outside continue to shine, indifferent to the terror unfolding inside. I watch them every night, hoping for a sign, a way out. But deep down, I know the darkness will never leave me. The Lone Star Diner is my prison, and the man in the corner is the warden, forever keeping me locked in this never-ending nightmare.